Before I call the meeting to order, good afternoon, everyone. I want to take a moment to thank Terry for a delicious meal. I spent much of my life on the seas off New England, so I became a connoisseur of clam chowder, or as they say up there, clam chowder. And I got to tell you, the more butter you put in it, the better that chowder is. This is mighty good corn chowder, so thank you very much for doing that. I'm calling the meeting to order, the 23rd October 2024 Rappahannock-Rapidan Regional Commission meeting. Let us please rise and do a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think I mentioned it before. It's amazing. You don't say that more than once every 2 months, and then it still is in your brain from when you were a child, and it just got put in there, a rote memory. We have a quorum. We do. Okay. I'd like to follow Robert's rules and make a motion to approve the agenda in a second, and then have a request for any additions to the agenda. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second? Second. Thank you. And any additions? I have one, which is to add at the end of new business a D, is it, or E? To talk about nominating committee. The mover, are you all right with that motion? Because he goes get some food. I'll assume he is. Seconder, are you all right with that there?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of approving the agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We open up now for public comment. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Annette Hyde. I am the new chair of the Virginia Career Works Piedmont Region Development Board. When I assumed this position, they didn't tell me about two other organizations I was involved with. One of them is the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. However, as my friend Jonathan Weekly knows, I live in Madison County, and the Piedmont Workforce Development Board of Virginia Career Works covers not only Albemarle, Charlottesville, Nelson, Louisa, it also covers y'all. So I'm here as an observer, and just wanted to let you know who I am. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Anyone else? All right, I'll close public comment. And we have presentation. Patrick, do you want to?
Sure, yeah, so Kristen Lamprasa, who is our Director of Regional Mobility Programs this year, with us in the past. She's given this presentation or similar past presentations remotely, but she's here with us today to talk about the Regional Transportation Collaborative and all the exciting changes that have happened over the past several years. So thanks, Kristen.
Thank you. So yeah, some of you have heard me maybe talk a little bit on this subject last year. This happened to me last year too.
All right, try it again.
Okay. So our program has a public facing entity and a partner facing entity. That's partly because we are the planning district and can't provide services directly to the public. So we outsource all of the services that we kind of cook up over here at the commission. And we have several relationships with partners across the community to leverage resources and implement those services. And it's all run through our mobility center. And that is a one call, one click center, which is a Chisholm best practice for the state of Virginia. So that's the Coordinated Human Services Mobility Plan that's designed as a requirement to the FDA to pass through funding to the state and then to us. So we have a whole host of public facing mobility services. People are filtered through this one call, one click center, and we gather a tremendous amount of information while they're accessing all of these services. And these are continuing to grow over time. So these fluctuate with when we're looking at that data and figuring out what the needs are at any given time. For example, during this pandemic, there was a huge increase in the amount of individuals needing gas card subsidies because of the economy at that time and pressure on people's funds. So we increased that program at that time. And then as that need has decreased, we've allocated that funding to go towards other services like contracted transportation for dialysis supports, which has been an increasing trending topic across our region for individuals trying to get to chronic care. We also have partner-facing services. We partner with about 30 different entities across the region, and those partnerships also fluctuate. They fluctuate based on the needs at the time of each partner and their availability to participate in this collaborative and any programs that may align with their priorities and their funding at that time. And we add these services on as partners come to the table with new needs. And we identify those needs through a strategic review process that we conduct every year, where we meet individually every single partner that's involved with our system. And we review what went well that year, what needs to change for the next year, and what their priorities are coming up, and what needs have changed for them, and how that might impact the services that they're involved in. We operate on a 5-year cycle, and we've just completed the first 5-year cycle that ended on September 30th. And it's really exciting to see that data over the last 5 years and how things have changed. We started this back in 2020, where we strategized this idea to mitigate funding losses that came down from a federal level. And we had this idea that if we worked together in a really active collaboration and leveraged resources, we would be able to expand our services and mitigate any losses for some of the smaller partners and programs that are providing transportation services in the region. In the next 5 years, there's a kind of a little bit of a glance at that. In this fiscal year that just started, we are going to be partnering with a consultant agency to look at our system and how it's grown over the last 5 years and how we anticipate those changes to continue over the next 5-year period. And they're going to give us their opinion on how we can move forward in the best way, whether that means we cap our growth and we stay at the commission where we can't provide direct services and we have to contract that out to a provider, which sometimes creates obstacles with that growth or new services that we want to implement. Or do we move this program outside of the commission and create its own entity within our region to be an open system? And that would allow for direct service provision and then kind of an uncapped growth model. So we're excited to see the consultants work, and they're going to be interviewing all of our partners and gathering a tremendous amount of information, looking at all of our real-time data on how we serve people and what their needs are and our finances. And then we're going to be looking at those implementations in the FY26 year to plan our 3-year move, either to remain at the commission or to move into a new entity. And then over the next couple of years, we're going to be working on continuing to diversify our funding. The primary source of our funding is coming from the state of Virginia through the FTA, but we also bring in a large portion of funding from the PATH Foundation and then small grants throughout the year. Because we have a collaborative with so many different partner entities, we're able to apply for almost any pot of funding that comes across, from community level to nationwide level. And that allows us to continue to diversify the funding in the area and help with that stability long-term over time. I'm just gonna let you marinate on that slide. So looking at our 5-year data, we have brought in $4.5 million for mobility management and contracted transportation. About a quarter of our funding has come from the PATH Foundation. And this fiscal year, we are the highest garnering program for the rural 5310 state program. We are pulling 40% of the state's rural resources into this area. And we don't take that lightly. It's a huge responsibility to use those funds in the most appropriate way and in the most efficient way to meet our needs. And we plan down to the dollar to be able to supplement all of the state funding and expand whatever the state's paying for with community funding as well. We were Virginia's first one call, one click center, and the only one call, one click center until this last year, where we mentorshipped TJPDC, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Our partnership model has been recognized by NCMM for its best practices. Two of our partners were awarded the Wave Village Award, which is associated with the District of Columbia, for its best practices with partnership and how to leverage resources. We have demonstrated our model of services and partnership for many other states, as you can see there. In Virginia, DRPT has recommended us as a case study for the Department of Transportation in Texas, as they're trying to develop a statewide plan for the state of Texas for 5310 funding and how it should be best used. We completed our 18-month mentorship program with TJPDC in September. That was an exciting project where we partnered with their staff to obtain funding to write their grant to the 5310 program and to replicate a portion of our model on a much smaller scale. So what we are doing here can be replicated on any level up to a statewide program or to the local community. And TJPDC has implemented the second one call, one click center in Virginia. We share our technology with them, and we agreed to a 3-year share period because our technology has the ability, it has a flat cost that never changes, and it has an incredible sharing capability where I can share it 50 times over without that ever being, that cost ever changing. So we offered that up to them and helped them build their infrastructure. What's really great about that is that people that are going from this area going to Charlottesville, which we know a lot of people are going to obtain medical care, they're able to cross that locality line and not feel a difference because there's a one call, one click center in Charlottesville now, which is the same model that we have here. And they can access their transportation services in the same way that they would access it here. So we're excited about that and kind of expanding to our other neighbors in the Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania area as well for the next fiscal year. Another benefit that was unexpected that came out of that relationship was the opportunity to leverage free vehicles from Jaunt. Jaunt is not a partner of ours because they're outside of our region, but they had a partnership with TJPDC, and we were able to get wind that they had vehicles that they wanted to get rid of. And we asked the state for special permission to obtain those vehicles for free. And we brought three vehicles, wheelchair vehicles, into this region for Culpeper Parks and Rec for their Discover Rec program, and for Verdun and for Special Olympics of Virginia in this area. So over the last 5 years, we've processed 40,000 phone calls, texts, and emails. 75% of those are directly through our call center, and 25% of that data is gathered through our partners. You can see there, it's a little bit small, but there's a breakdown there of what people are calling about. Public transit is a very tiny sliver there. And most of the time, people are trying to get matched up with volunteer transportation options. And the largest majority, my chart cut off there for some strange reason, but the largest majority of reasons people want to travel is for medical. Over the last few years, because we've been able to bring in these larger wheelchair vans and miniature buses, we also got for a very nominal cost from another program in the state. The programs that we work with have increased their offerings to include social trips for older adults. And so they're creating these opportunities to come to Eastern View to an event that might be happening here in Culpeper from Orange, and they're bringing a group of 15 or 20 people with them. And they're creating all kinds of opportunities like that to get people out into the community. We also track all of the volunteer transportation, and we work with about 6 different programs that have provided more than 50,000 rides in the last 5 years. And we've given out over $60,000 in gas subsidies, which has primarily been funded by the PATH Foundation. We work with the PATH Foundation in their Community Link program, which is one of their primary funded objectives. We didn't want to recreate what they were doing, so we connected with their system through our technology. And if we hear about an issue from one of our drivers where a client has said, I need a ride to get to the pharmacy, I've lost my medication, or they call into the mobility center and they say, I don't have any food in the house, I've got to get to the grocery store. If there's a concerning issue that comes up, we directly refer it to the Community Link PATH Foundation, and they do a case management on that individual to help them with other services that are beyond transportation and beyond our scope. And we don't lose those people within our system. They're able to connect directly to another resource that might help them. We also have contracted 2 microtransit systems to try out. We've done one in Rappahannock, which will also continue this next year in a modified version. And we've done one in Southern Fauquier. And those are primarily to target the rurality of Rappahannock and then also the dialysis individuals who are in the Bealton area in Fauquier. We have right now about 5,000 unique clients in our system that we've helped, and the vast majority of those are repetitive clients. They're looking for something over and over, and they're accessing more than one type of service. We work with lots of different partners and stakeholders across our area, including non-traditional partners. We have distribution gas card points set up at the public library, for example, in Southern Fauquier, where people can access those gas cards in an area that's close by to them. We also coordinate with 7 different volunteer driver programs that are listed there, and we have recorded all of their data to show that their contribution over the last 5 years has been well over $1 million in transportation. There's a little chart there, which I found very interesting when I pulled this information. If we had lived in a rural area, or excuse me, an urban area, and we had purchased the amount of transportation that we got from volunteers, it would have cost us $3 million. And they gave us that for free. And we don't live in an urban area. We don't have Uber or Lyft and widespread options. So we would have had to pay even more because we're in a rural area, and it would have cost us $6 million if we had tried to purchase that transportation to replicate it without volunteers. So I think that this program brings a lot to the commission, and there's a lot of takeaways from data all the way to our service model. But this is action-oriented work that's happening, and it's driven by data, and it's constantly evolving, and it's representing the commissioners' goals for their town and county governments. We are helping to fill in those gaps in our community where public transit drops off and the need picks up. So the work is never done. There's a tremendous amount of need still out there. And it's hard not to get discouraged by that. It's almost like Pandora's box or an iceberg. You're never gonna, as soon as you start looking, the more and the more needs that pop up. But what's great about our system is that it's adaptable, and we're able to be responsive when we see those needs happening in our community. And I think that's a really good representation of what you guys do through your work with the commission, is you're responding to these community needs when you're seeing them. That's the end of my presentation, but I wanted to leave you all with a little anecdotal story that has come up this year. We're going to have a press release on this story with more details over the next 2 months. But we had an individual who, John Victor, if any of you know him, very wonderful person who volunteered with 2 of our systems, 2 of our volunteer driver programs over several years. He participated very heavily in these programs. Instead of just one of them, he was with 2, and he came to all the meetings, all the work groups. He was in the meeting that I remember talking about this collaborative idea with. He was very supportive at that time, and he provided a tremendous amount of transportation. He ended up aging out of that system of being able to provide rides, which happens across all of our volunteer driver programs. And he ended up taking rides. He became a rider himself. And he rode with several of our partner programs. He rode with our new microtransit program in Rappahannock as well. And he took those rides for several months as he needed them. He passed away, unfortunately, a few months ago, and he bequeathed some of his estate to our programs, to these programs that he was so passionate about, that he got services from and that he provided services for. And it was such a wraparound moment for what we are doing. And I think it's a really great example, because what we tend to think is that transportation needs are connected with financial ability. But in this area, because we aren't urban, it doesn't have anything to do with that all the time. It is also about your network, your ability, how you want to burden your family and friends for rides, your chronic illness, you know, the list goes on and on. And he was able to be someone who participated in these programs and gave back to these programs in multiple ways. And he wasn't desperate for rides because of money. He liked being involved in these systems. So it's just a really great story, and we'll pass that press release on to you guys when we get it as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. It's very, very public. I had one question. I had one question, which is if the consultants come back, would you become a 501c3? Would the organization become a 501c3?
Yes, it would be a nonprofit.
And then how would that coordinate with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District? Would they still coordinate with you as you're not part of the planning commission anymore?
Yeah, actually, the way that we garner funds from the state and these 5310 programs, there are so many different types of people who are around that table. The planning districts are the rare ones. So Thomas Jefferson PDC is the only other planning district in the state that garners those funds. Others are AAA programs, community service boards, and smaller nonprofits that are garnering the funds. So we're kind of the exception, but we'll continue to work with colleagues across the state through that funding program.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
No, you maintain some type of geographic analysis of where the clients are live, because it occurs to me there may be, you may have areas that are not served as well relative to their density as other areas.
Yes, a couple of years ago, we pulled a comprehensive study, and we have that available anytime through our system, where we pooled the starting and ending point for all transportation requests. And it was really interesting. You could see little pockets and hotspots of people where they're starting and where they're ending. A lot of where they were starting had no correlation to the population density. So you have people, if you look at the public transit footprint, the population density it's irrelevant. It's centered around the town, but you have areas that are highly populated in Fauquier County, for example, that are nowhere near public transit because it's such a large county. And you have starting and endings happening not in those highly populated areas, but in other rurality areas. And the ending destination, a lot of the pockets that we saw were in the towns. And that's where we saw a lot of the missing connection was. And the public transit systems try to meet that demand with their on-demand systems, but it's first come, first serve, and it's very limited. So anybody can call from anywhere and call for Fauquier and get a ride on that system, but you're in line, and it doesn't always align with when and where you want to go. So that can be frustrating for people. But yes, we hold that data all the time.
Yes, sir.
I think it was it 2 years ago when we got this presentation, the first
Similar one.
percent of it. And I just want to say, I think I spoke at that point saying that I was struck by how creative, collaborative, flexible, and successful you've been developing this program then. It's great to see it validated now later with some awards and partnering with our neighbors to expand that program. That's really great. And so
Thank you.
commendations, well deserved, kudos. It's great to be here. In Orange, we're working on our opioid response plans, and we just wrapped up our strategic planning work, and we're about to go to the board with it. And one of the top issues of concern to many community stakeholders was transportation. And I wasn't at the last part of that meeting where that came up. And so I got it after the fact, and I said, oh, well, we need to help them understand what we do have. Because it's probably a lot more than people even know. And it's fairly recent that it's really come into this level of service. So we got some marketing communications to do. We'll be getting with you to build those information streams. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have to say, seeing the rapid home vehicles going through the county makes me proud, because there's a lot of stuff we can't provide for our citizens because of our lack of income. And so knowing that that is there, and it's also, I think, allowing some of the calls that normally would have gone to 911 to have assistance. We're not getting as many, I would bet. I don't know that for a fact, but the EMS folks don't have to go out as often.
Yes, it's definitely, there's an impact there, and there's some missing data that kind of falls away where people are calling emergency services for non-emergency issues. We have partnered also with Madison's community EMS program to provide them with a shared vehicle through the state so that they can use that to deliver medical equipment to individuals' homes and also transport them to non-emergency medical appointments, like at the free clinic and other things, and that helps to eliminate that demand on emergency services.
All right, thank you, ma'am, I appreciate it. Great presentation. All right, we have a consent agenda, the minutes from the August 28th meeting, the revenue and expenditures, and the Title VI plan. Patrick, is there any comment on the Title VI plan that should be given to anybody?
No, and I actually went back and forth, this should be a consent agenda, this should be new business, this is the third time that we've had to update it, it's a 3-year plan. We have to have it because of our grants through DRPT, but also VDOT. The only thing I'll note is that one of the challenges we faced is trying to get all of the requirements that VDOT and FHWA have versus what DRPT and Federal Transit Administration have. Because as you might imagine, they don't always overlap very well. So, but no, I think this one should suffice for the next 3 years.
Patrick,
There's a problem, they can pull that, vote on separately, if they want it.
yeah. Patrick, I always think I have a difficult job, but then I realize I pale comparison to what you had to put up with some stuff. So we have, can we have a motion to approve the, thank you, second?
Second.
Thank you. Although, any, deletions or objections? If not, we'll go ahead and call for those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Apologize for my tongue-tiedness. Patrick?
All right, couple things from the director's report, and so I don't forget the sub-item for the hazard mitigation and resiliency plan. What's included in my report is a link to the draft plan. We had an open house on October 7th, lightly attended, but we did actually get some good comments from a couple people that had not been involved in the development of the plan. Which are going to be incorporated along with our other comments that have come back from some of the participants on the project management team, as well as the internal review. What we anticipate is that it says the public comment period is through today, which is true, but if there are comments from any of you reviewing or any of you as part of the project management team, that we will incorporate those as needed. The process is we'll have probably likely at the December meeting, we will have a presentation on the plan for you. The way that FEMA and the Virginia Department of Emergency Management run these planning processes is they want to see the draft and then they want to review it and tell you what you should fix or what else needs to happen before they give you what's called an approved pending adoption designation. And at that point, when we get that approved pending adoption, we would come back not only to the commission, but also to each of your local governments that have participated in this with the request for that adoption process. But again, just wanted to let you know where we are in that process. It's been about 15, 16 months of work on this update right now. The other items I want to, again, thank all of you that were able to join us for the annual meeting, and especially thanks to Commissioner Donahue for the wonderful basket from Rappahannock County, which went to, I think, Kathy Zielinski, a former commission employee, received that, and obviously to Chair Catlin for sharing and speaking responsibilities as well as Vice Chair Pointer. We are hiring for a position right now, our food system specialist, which has through the years been called farm to school liaison, farm to school associate. Mallory Grady, who's been in that role since last summer, has taken another opportunity in the region. So she'll be close by, and I have a sense we'll probably do some work with some of our other programs. But we are hiring for that position right now. Other item that probably will come back in December for a more formal presentation, we're in the process, we have not made the final project payment for the housing development program that people incorporated, but we have the reimbursement request from them and we are submitting ours to Virginia Housing. So once we make that payment, we'll have some staff time that we're still going to bill through June 2025 to provide status reports and things of that nature, but we will successfully move the $2 million through the region with 113 housing units, contributing toward 113 housing units over the past 4 years, once we get to June 2025. So happy to say that we've moved through that, and I know some of the projects have been slow to go, but we know that they're definitely making progress now. And then the other things I wanted to mention, we did finalize, maybe Michelle's here and she talked about it at the last meeting, but we did finalize an agreement with Culpeper County for our National Fish and Wildlife Foundation funding that we received. I wrote in 2022, that may have been wrong, it may have been 2021, but the county's already using the funds to install BMPs at the Carver Center as part of a parking lot repaving and reconstruction project, which will be complete before December, so that will wrap that NIFA grant up. And we did receive our final approval from U.S. Economic Development Administration on our SEDS plan in September, and I submitted our final status report and SF 425 document earlier this week, so we are good with that. We will likely in early 2025 reconvene our partners on the SEDS and bring back any updates on an annual basis for the commission to look at and consider as well. Other than that, I think that's it. The director's report.
The only question, if I can ask, is that one of the recipients for the housing was Heroes Bridge.
Heroes Bridge submitted a request early on, and when they submitted, our internal review and talking with them at that time, they were not as advanced, and so we did not make an award to them.
Because I saw they got it turned down for, I think it was them, they got turned down for a project.
I don't want to speak for the Town of Warrenton Planning Commission, did not, I can't approve their.
Yeah.
Their rezoning, I guess is probably
You hit on
the
it.
best way of putting it.
So it sounds like we made the right decision. Okay. Thank you. Next on the agenda is old business. Regional broadband project status. This is open for general discussion. I'm going to go ahead, since I'm trying to be careful of the time, open up for about 5 minutes or so. If we need longer, we can take longer, but let's shoot for a target of 5 minutes. Any updates?
John, you want to speak or you want me to speak?
I was looking your way.
Okay, so it's not a good update. In Culpeper, we're jealous of Madison now. We wish that we would have gone with Firefly. They have a track record. If you look across the state VATI system, Firefly is knocking it out of the park. Gary Wood knows what he's doing and is exceptional. All Points is a little further behind. And so we updated our agreement with them where they have a specific target of having to have availability of service by Thursday of next week. I'm not confident they're going to meet that. And if so, you would think somebody would know. If not, we're gonna, figure out what to do going forward. We did amend the agreement with All Points where they are supposed to be substantially complete by the end of this February with fiber to the home of 80% of more than 4,300 homes. They're telling us they're dead on target. You all drive here and you don't see any fiber going in the ground and on poles, so they're gonna somehow get all of it done between now and the end of February. If not, we're gonna look at other alternatives then, or we'll have the right to, and we likely will. That's where we are. Is that a good summary?
That's perfect. Really don't want to give a Madison update. No, the Board of Supervisors last night approved the three-party agreement for the VATI 2024 grant, which will cover the northern part of the county. I think our local match for that is around 400,000. We still have some ARPA monies remaining for that. And that was originally an RDOF challenge area that Chantel said they could cover, and then their reasoning to pulling out was they said the state changed the upload download speed. They just could not compete or construct. So it left it hanging out there for a while, but we're happy to have that grant. We do not have the coverage, the final coverage maps or completion dates because that has to go through DHCD and then we'll put it out. Recently amended our VATI 2022 grant. That is been out there a couple years, and through Firefly, they've been doing a lot of the infrastructure work. The first service drop, I don't believe has happened yet, but just I took the TED approach, even though you all were really advanced out there before VATI money came available. I said, I want connection data. Remember, you would always give countdown and data for monthly connections. So we're looking forward to hopefully begin that next month. But we did amend the Valley 2022 to include what was to be Brightspeed, who had another RDOF challenge area in the county, which kind of borders Madison and Green. So things are moving along, still not moving along quickly for citizens, because when you have delays, which I'm very sensitive to, Mr. Underwood, even with the Brightspeed territory, they were given letters by that ISP that said, hey, December 15th, 2024, you're going to be live. And now we're going to have to give them a new date. So the one that carries the message, they kind of look at you like maybe you're lying. It is a national election time, so we'll fit right in with that. But no, the broadband, it's a long time coming. It can do a lot of things, whether it's education or telemedicine, things that transportation is currently helping with, that broadband can also help with in those areas.
Isn't Firefly going to be sending the notices very shortly for the Decapolis substation, or kind of the eastern part of Madison County?
The Decapolis, it's possible. Decapolis, those, when that project first rolled out, was going to be one of the last areas. So if anything, the make-ready work, you'll probably get notice of that. But that, even though I'm now over in Locustdale, I was a mile from that station. Now I live on the other side of the county. My wife thinks, because I'm county administrator, that, hey, we'll get lit up front. That doesn't work that way. So Decapolis will be last. So it'll be make ready that you'll see through that area.
We did ask Firefly if they wanted to come to our community, and they said that'd be great, but it's too far away.
That was years ago.
Data claim also asked.
That's the thing,
Fiber
they
Link,
told us we wanted Firefly
if
first
you
too.
wanted
Yeah.
to play in our area, and so
Stuck.
we're assuming that we're following you. And so if they default with you, that should give them more time to do our work. Good luck.
Well, they've have applied for BEAD grant because they now want to take it underground. And so they have several places in Fauquier. They feel at the shale, to be a county administrator, you also have to be a geologist. And there's places that they can go through, and they're adding longer time to the quarter that they're, so I don't know if we'll have it until 2027.
We're gonna have a quarterly update 2 months ago, so.
Well, I've got them on the November 14th board meeting.
Okay.
So the
we'll see if they
utility
show up.
easement legislative issue will come in handy with the public hearings.
We'll see.
Does it make sense for this body in some way to have a meeting with these people? It sounds like they kind of pick us off one at a time. I don't know if there's any benefit of a.
I don't think so.
collective way.
Yeah.
Oh, so, okay.
I mean, the larger project that Fauquier and Rappahannock County is, the administrators are regional commission on the other side of the mountains. But if you direct us to.
No, I offer it to them. All right, thank you. Regional legislative priorities.
All right, so many of you may have seen this on your local agendas, but it is here for your consideration, or amendment and other changes, I suppose. The way this has developed in the past is the Eldon James, the legislative liaison, has developed this for going on 25 years, but the changes from last year, the priority issues are listed there. Support for K-12 education, funding recommendations from the JLARC report, school construction modernization, and really allowing local referendum options for capital funding, stopgap funding for small school divisions, Rappahannock County, that bullet point. The easement, residential utility easements on local government property, and the VRS extension of prior service credits primarily as a recruitment tool. The other items of note that I included here just on changes were related to FOIA closed meeting and the eligibility to discuss solar siting, similar to the way that local governments are allowed to have a closed session for hazardous waste siting. Transportation funding, and this was really from Supervisor Broadus from Fauquier County about just increased flexibility and use of some of the secondary road funds, even though they're not plentiful. For looking at non-paving alternatives in cases where that might be preferred by the local government or the residents. Another item from Fauquier County about non-agricultural excavation material on ag lands. And then a revised item on the fire and EMS study and Office of Emergency Medical Services. So really what this is a opportunity just to sort of lend a regional support to these items listed. Generally, unless there's something very, that pulls everybody together and everybody agrees on, this isn't, Eldon is not down there lobbying on all of these unless a bill is coming up that really feels, the commission or the local commission feels strongly about, but open for your all's discussion and review.
The only thing I would add to this is, in our case, or for Culpeper County, it would be good to see more revenue sharing funds available. So if the county's willing to put in and be matched 50-50, and there aren't sufficient funds for us to be matched 50-50, that means it would be better for the state to put more funds in. And we were not matched 50-50 everywhere, and not because of the quality of the project, just because there wasn't the funding.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at the transportation section. I feel like we had that in there previously, so I hear that.
So I didn't see it. I saw the smart scale stuff. I didn't, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, who works in the Office of General Assembly can make decisions on funding, but did they look to CTB to give guidance of, hey, yes, these are projects you should match, or do they have any?
It is reviewed by the CTB, but the criteria, and John, you may know this better than me, but the criteria is set kind of by central office, isn't it? And then CTB reviews the criteria. And if it's a new project, you have a much less chance of getting complete funding than if it isn't, because it can't be tier 1 if it's new. And so therefore it sets up a system where it ends up taking pretty much a minimum of 4 years to get any project done, which that's another thing that we should request also. They moved it out 2 years with the pandemic and have never moved it back in. So when we're getting money now, I mean, we're doing projects for stuff many years out, and inflation is killing our estimates. And if they would move it back in, it would be much less of a problem and be much more pragmatic.
I will say the transportation section does reference,
It
mentions it, it just said, it's under the, say right there where it says encourages state to ensure adequate state funding for smart scale and for revenue sharing programs. That the timing of it though is exactly right. Okay, yeah.
And then for us, as a region, we don't have as much of an issue with smart scale because we don't have a regional transportation commission. So we overweight smart scale as compared to all other districts. So frankly, it's the revenue sharing is the issue, not the smart scale for us as a region.
I'd say something like or revenue sharing programs.
Well,
Yeah, we can strengthen the language for sure.
Yeah.
or one of the things that we had mentioned or in drafts sometime in the past was if our revenue that is currently going to smart scale, if we had a choice of it going to revenue sharing or smart scale. So even if they just gave us flexibility, that would be helpful. But otherwise looks good, although I don't think they're gonna pick up the real estate tax abatement relative to the different categories we keep passing, but nice ask.
All right. Can I have a motion to, oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Chair. Just to sort of follow up, I think a couple of years ago, we also talked about the concept of, did we want to explore a regional transportation commission type approach, not unlike NVTC and Hampton Roads and recently the Richmond region, which has now rolled out many new projects with that extra slice of gas tax or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, we did, I think that was last June, maybe we provided back, here's the revenues that are generated mostly from the wholesale fuels tax. And I think it was, my recollection, it was lower than people might have anticipated. I think the big moneymaker for Richmond and Hampton Roads would be on the sales tax, how much 10% that they put on there. But if that's a discussion, we can put it back on the agenda. For sure.
I mean, just, as a practical matter, no elected official wants to be known as the person who is the gas tax champion. I mean, maybe if you live in Arlington or Fairfax, you do, but the way it was successful in the Richmond region was it was sort of everyone was in at the same time. So it was like nobody could be blamed. Everybody just sort of said, well, this is good for the region. We're not opposed. And so then everybody just sort of let it happen. And they did have to have somebody to carry the water in the General Assembly. And there was a very specific kind of person kind of writing it and frankly negotiating with Chesterfield and Henrico. And everybody else just said, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, and we'll get the gravy at the end. They'll get the majority of it, but the rest of us will benefit. And that's how it happened. So, if we feel like we're, could benefit from that we want to get ahead of some of these things. In Orange, we just don't have the need at the level that Culpeper and Fauquier have. But, there are projects that are stacked up and we could get them knocked out and we could start to look at some enhancement type projects that we'll probably never be able to do unless we have more money. But that's going to take sort of political leadership in a way that y'all can stomach it with your constituents.
Culpeper, the board has been cleared unanimously that we have projects that are backed up that we currently don't have funding for. And so our major collector roads need to be improved. We're putting an elementary school near another collector that is high priority across the entire board. So I'm normally known as the no tax or low tax person in Culpeper, and sign me up politically. So, yeah.
This is something we want to have an in-depth, I think December, I don't know if December is too soon, maybe at the February meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it would be too late to orchestrate this for this upcoming session.
I think you're right.
You got to get a sponsor and all that kind of stuff.
August is when you got it, yeah.
But if you want to try to plan for the next assembly and kind of get your ducks in a row and think about who might carry the bill and how it might, that you probably can't start too soon to kind of at least work through that.
Would you two be interested in just kind of doing a framework, a skeleton of kind of how our discussion should happen?
Sure. Happy to help.
Yeah.
I mean, work
You
with
have a
Patrick.
lot more experience than I do, but yes.
Happy to help.
Because the implementation is critical. How to do this. Obviously, you've got to go through different boards and councils and everything else.
There was a good presentation at VACO last year on this, of how to do the transportation authorities that had a person from Central Virginia Transportation on there, so. Getting that material is another thing.
Well, the same either for February or maybe the April, whatever.
Big question comes down to the sales tax. And whether the region is willing to accept that. I think that's where it landed last time, that probably not. But we'll take, whatever bump on the wholesale, which I think led to not a ton of revenue, which maybe made it mean that it wasn't worth the squeeze. But if the region came down to, they could handle, I think it was 0.4 of a penny
I think that's great.
on the sales tax, then that's real significant revenue to do regional projects. Of which we probably have none in Rappahannock County, but we also don't use any revenue sharing or smart scale, so you're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one. It's probably not a popular topic. I just gave Patrick notice. I had sent him an email on this. I sent out the legislative platform to department heads and whether you're constitutional officers or DSS, just to get some feedback. And I spent some time this week, met with our director of DSS and the head of our CSA department. And I know that's one of our legislative platforms. Some of the feedback or primary feedback of concern, I'm gonna try to use terms that are not flashpoint, but most services that come through, you have a state and local match. And there are certain qualifiers you can bill and send to Virginia Medicaid that you'll get reimbursed. And it's usually a 2-month lag, especially in the year. It can be a pain kind of closing out year-end funds. We've just begun to see it in Madison, and we're waiting on the invoices now for these services. I've been told somewhere near 6 figures or north of 6 figures. Is that of the cases we had 2, and it's not an equal share. So not every client in services equals $5,000. It could be 5,000 here, 100,000, depending on what your need. And it's a humane thing to do to take care of folks, but it's when you do not have legal status and Virginia Medicaid says no, that a rural locality who has to begin to pick up that amount of money, it's going to present challenges and necessarily want to put folks on the spot. If you want to have conversations offline, I know our DSS director, Ms. Ward, is aware of maybe how Culpeper or maybe even Orange is looking at these things, but there's language in here. I think it's the second bullet point on page 4 of your legislative platform, or my page 4, I printed off from the last email you sent around, Patrick. But it talks about the region supports equitable cost sharing between the state and localities for the costs involved in the placement of children. So I think all that's perfect. I don't know how you would write language that would not come off as inflammatory, recognizing, you know, it's about providing that service, but would encourage the state some type of additional funding to support those needs, even if it's a 50-50. Give us something.
Medicaid funding gaps.
Yes. That's a better way to put it. Thank you, Gary. But I'd be happy to learn how other localities are, you know, not only faced with that challenges, but thoughts or how you're addressing that.
I mean, I'll react just to say, we're with you. We're 6-figure budget explosions every month for several months, and the state of accommodation in the Commonwealth for folks, youngsters with various needs is very poor. We know that we've let our mental health facilities decline over the years, and it's sort of in a crisis mode, and there is an awareness, but the actual availability of facilities just isn't there yet. There may be initiatives, but we're left. You know, we've got kids in Missouri, South Carolina, and then we got to send somebody out to visit them every month. I mean, it's crazy. And I don't know, some of our folks, we've had people sleeping in the offices. So you know, I mean, is that the right setting?
We're actually converting part of the office stuff, aren't we, John? To be able to.
They're talking about it. They're gonna make a proposal to the board, but yeah, we had one kid stay along environment social services for like 3 months.
Yeah.
Because nobody would take him out of state, in state, private or otherwise.
Yeah.
He was just unplaceable.
You know, being on the front line as a teacher, the people don't understand what a profound impact that COVID had on our children. We, young in early education, we're calling them COVID babies because we see a direct impact, and those who are teaching teenagers are seeing a profound impact. It's getting to a point now to try to get services, private services, is taking 4 to 6 months. That the psychologists and the counselors and so on are that far out. So. Boy. All right, anything else?
One other comment, just, Jeremy Bennett from BACO was at our board meeting. You know, to give us a couple of awards, but that's, you know, that's. No, but he
I'm
just.
glad you slipped that.
You know, that he mentioned that they were not gonna be advocating for the local option sales tax for school construction. They're not opposed, they will support it, but I was surprised. He said they just sort of feel like they really pushed hard last year and got it to where it was widely supported, bipartisan, you know, was ready to go. You know, the governor could have signed it, but then it got caught up, in the football of the stadium debacle as a bargaining chip, and then it failed. So they just feel like they need to take a break. I said, I disagree. I think you could push it over the goal line Oh, I love that. The metaphors just keep rolling. Because it did have bipartisan support and, you know, the stadium deal is now not on the table, but they just strategically don't think they should. So if folks want that to be advanced, I know we've got a couple of big capital program, you know, CTE center, so we can catch up with Culpeper and some elementary school expansions we need to fund. So we really want to see that happen, but somebody's got to sort of advance that. I know our package here says we support it. I'm not sure who's going to carry the water, you know, or be the fullback on that. But VACO is not, this coming year is what I'm understanding, so. We could ask Eldon to be stronger on it. But I don't know if Nick Freitas is gonna be the one to champion.
I don't think you, I don't want to speak for Nick, but I feel confident he's not going to be the champion. Neither will Weber.
Yeah, so I don't know who might.
Or Bryce.
Yeah. That's just a comment, thank you.
I think we
If there's no other additions, can I have a motion to approve the amended regional legislative priorities?
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Patrick?
This will be quick. As we talked about in August with, Mayor Pointer, leaving elected service at the end of the calendar year, we need a new, elected representative to the Go Virginia Region 9 Council. In August, Supervisor, Commissioner Broadus, raised his hand and said he may be interested. I did have a follow-up conversation with him a week or two ago and gave him more information. He said he remained interested. I offered that it might make more sense for him to participate in the next council meeting or watch the next council meeting, which is next Tuesday. And then we could come back in December, assuming that he's still interested. So he says he's already added the meetings to his calendar for 2025, but that's what he told December.
We can go ahead and approve them now.
You could.
I'm a little surprised. We'll hold off till December. New business.
All right, first one is, if some of you may recall from 2 years ago in 2022, that for the first time in about 20 years, we did a personnel policy revision and you know, pushed those through. I think at the time, I think I made a statement that we'll come back annually with any revisions, and now we're 2 years in, and this is the first time I've brought back any. The suggested revisions are minor and are outlined there, just clarifying health insurance contributions. The way it was written previously, it specified the actual amount that the commission was contributing, and what this clarifies is that we would meet the minimum required amount for Virginia's local choice with the option annually based on the budget availability to go about that. And then some clarification on leave and then travel related expenses. And then an update on the general pay plan, which was included in 2022. And then also including all the current position descriptions. So I'm happy to answer questions on any of those if you have them, but as I said, mostly minor items.
Any questions?
So what is the value added of stating as of FY25, the percentages are this or that?
Is that for the health insurance?
Yeah,
Contribution?
and page 23.
Thank you.
And
Oh, I see what you're saying.
and how did you come to the conclusion that that's the right mix of employee versus family?
So
contribution?
historically, we have been at, it was, well, at dates offhand, I think probably up until about 7 or 8 years ago, the single employee was 100%, and the commission, I think the executive committee made a recommendation, there should be some buy-in from the employee, so let's do it at 10%. And then the dual or family coverage was, has historically been at 2/3, 1/3. As part of the budget 2 years ago, because we had an increase in those costs, my budget that was recommended to you all and approved included changing that to 92% and 70% just to hold harmless for the employees. We did not do that this current year. So that's where the current percentages are. And to your point of why I list them there, that's a good question. We could just remove that part and just say, you know,
If they're subject to change every year based on the budget,
right.
it's out of date
Okay.
after the first year.
Agree. So you're going for removing them?
I think you just remove the sentence that says employee
Yeah, it
coverage.
starts here.
Yes.
Employee coverage. Okay.
And I assume you'll have a little sheet that you share with your employees when they're onboarding that would go with this, that they can see what they are.
Yes. Makes sense.
Anything else? Not a motion to approve the revisions?
Motion to approve the revisions with the revisions suggested by Mr. Curry.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other additions? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Budget amendments.
Great. So normally we don't actually bring budget amendments to you, usually until December or February, but because of, some increases in awards and also the USDA Farm to School Award, wanted to bring those to you now just because we have them and it makes sense too. We're also going through the process of making dues requests to each of the local governments for FY 2026, so it helps to have, an updated budget for this year to share as part of that request. So again, revenues are increasing for mobility management. You just heard Kristen's presentation and that drawing in 40% of the rural funds available through the 5310 program. We received a significant amount there. And so that did increase this year. And so we've added the revenues. For this current fiscal year, the Farm to School grant is a 2-year grant. So we're conservatively estimating 35,000 in revenues there for this year. Total was 92,000 and some change. And then a couple of, one is a pass-through grant related to Foothills Housing Network, which is going to for domestic violence programs in the region. So it's reimbursements to SAFE and Fauquier County domestic violence program through the DSS office. And then finally, the last addition would be additional money through the Virginia Homeless Solutions Program, again, for our coordinated entry services for Foothills Housing Network. And then on the expenditures corresponding with all of those above, and then adding in some expenses for Southeast Regional Commission, which is mostly direct costs related to travel and supplies for that capacity building program. The additional payroll expenses that are included are tied to that DHSP funding to bring some part-time assistance, again, on coordinated entry. It sort of tied to the CSA discussion. We've had that same conversation about people calling in that are not documented or are not, don't have legal status, and, how to figure out how to work with those people and make, referrals for them, has come up through coordinated entry as well. And then the last 3 items that I would highlight there, one is additional 2,500 for audit and legal. I think we still get a good deal on our audit, but because we exceeded 750,000 in federal revenues for the first time this year, our audit has to go through the official single audit process, which added costs to that. And then annual meeting workshops and meetings, adding some expenses there. And then we did have, I think I shared in August, one of the HVAC systems in the office died in July, and so added money to the office agents to cover that one-time cost. The last thing I'll note is that you can see that the overall budget of a little bit over 2.7 million. There is 18,500 unallocated, and my recommendation is to leave that in case of future needs, some of which may come up later in this discussion, actually the next agenda item. So
I'll move to adopt fiscal year 25 budget amendments.
We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Oh, wake up. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, let the elected.
Using water supply planning?
sure. So water supply planning, and again, maybe this has come, I know to the administrators and managers, this has come up, but for some of you, maybe it's come up at boards and council meetings. The amended regulations for water supply planning were approved, became effective on October 9th. A letter that I attached, version that we received, came from Department of Environmental Quality. I understand that each town and county and also each water authority received a similar letter asking for a designation of regional planning unit representative for water supply planning as well as an alternate by December 8th. Was on a call or a meeting this morning with Rappahannock River Basin Commission, their technical committee, where DEQ staff, someone pushed back on that date and they said that's actually part of the code, the statutory requirements, so that date is not changing in terms of having to identify the individual.
What's the penalty if we don't?
I don't know what DEQ would actually do about it. I
And
guess
the report needs to be done in like 5 years.
into 5 years, angry 5-year horizon.
I mean, no, seriously, for us, for water supply, you all tell me, but most of ours comes from the town. We work well with the town, other than a little to the north. We have rural all the way around. There is no physical or pragmatic reason to do a regional water supply.
Just for history, we have a regional water supply plan already between the
Yeah.
town and the county.
That's what I mean, yeah.
I think this is just a matter of taking the plans that everybody else has and somebody package them together and
Is that
update a few
worthwhile?
things.
It's a waste of
Worthwhile,
money.
not to be sued by DEQ, but that's the bodies. and figure
Well,
out, but-
I noted last time, and you can take credit for the fact that Rappahannock's gonna commit to not blowing up in population and.
Yeah.
And so you.
We're gonna do the same. That'll
You
be our update.
recognize that in your plan that, as far as on a region.
Yeah.
Water supply is welcome.
We talked about it before the meeting started. I've got a call scheduled with Ms. Summers. I think she's the regional point of contact DEQ for our area, just to see what's the expectations. We gave them our primary and alternate point of contact, but there's uniqueness within the communities, and we have always, just like the town and county, Madison's followed suit as well. Our town and county had their own plan.
Our
but-
town and county does too.
And unless it's risk assessment, vulnerabilities within those plants, maybe, but I don't know what else is gonna come of it, because we all have our uniqueness and needs wherever our population centers are, or growth or lack of growth.
From working on the last one, there's tons and tons of piles of required stuff that you have to put in there that is meaningless to anybody, but you still have to do it. But I think we've already done that, so I don't think that's gonna change a whole lot.
Fine, say
They didn't-
yes.
They didn't set it up based on watersheds, so that didn't really help making it regionally, but it does make it easy for us, I think, to put it together as this group. That's what they asked for, so garbage in, garbage out. Package it,
Check the
send it
list.
back to them and check it off. And
Yeah.
like the one we currently have, when was the last time you read it?
Actually, pretty recently, but that's for a different reason. So, not as a government official.
My point was, it
Yeah.
really doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, after the last drought last year, we updated the
Yeah.
important parts of ours and
Yeah,
just getting ready to roll it into this, but the rest of the stuff is just that boilerplate. But I think to answer your question, I think, RRC would be the logic, point of putting it all together. Otherwise, we gotta figure out who draws the short straw to put the thing together.
I think we came within one day of sending tractor trailers to Culpeper to send water to Gordonsville and Orange. Back in '01, the Rappahannock River had dried up. You could walk across the ground on the river where the river was. And then it rained. Since then, we've done some things in Orange, but then we were out of water. And we couldn't get water that was gonna satisfy us from Culpeper. That was just to hand out water like a hurricane situation or something. And then it changed, yeah.
So the only questions I would have are if we should take the coordinating role, which is we've communicated, and Mr. Weekly, if you get a response in terms of to your questions from Ms. Summers, I didn't feel like this morning she was on the call, and it wasn't that she didn't have the answers, it's just that they're taking their time to develop a guidance document and everything else, and so we'll have more information. The other thing is just for my own, because we don't normally interact with water authorities, the three I've got are Rappahannock Service Authority, Fauquier County Water and Sanitation Authority. Rappahannock County is water and sewer authority, but they only do sewer.
They got a letter too.
So.
I told them just make me your representative. And
So
they
you
said,
get double
okay.
votes, I guess. Yeah. So that's just from an administrative side. I mean, I would have asked for everybody to provide your alternate and primary to us as you provide it to DEQ until we know that we're, taking on a more official role. So,
Yeah, hopefully, can't imagine anybody else being better positioned.
Right.
agree.
Hopefully, at some point, some funding will come in that we can use for data commission versus, having to divvy it up, but.
The
We
word
have a
this
few years
morning,
probably to figure it out. I mean, it's kind of, this whole thing has been like watching paint dry.
right, the word this morning was there's 462,000 in current 2-year budget, which if you divide by 26 regional planning units is about 16 or 17,000. The DEQ is not going to advocate for anything higher than that. They sort of chuckled and said, you all know how to go get money, so, So
It's enough to do the Xeroxing.
if what we're doing is pulling together 5 existing plans, making a few updates and putting a 4-page executive summary in the front of it that says, here's how these interact, then maybe that would. So. But it is a 5-year plan.
Let's assume that that is.
Thank you.
Right. Audit?
So I was maybe a little bit confident that we would have the audit. What we have received, we have not received the draft audit yet. It probably will be transmitted out to all of you in the next week or two. We have received the final actuarial basis numbers, which, as I talked about in August, there was a question about the last year's FY 2024 revenues and expenditures were cash basis. We were about 15,000 deficit. Actuarial basis, we're in a surplus as we have been for several years. So we'll have those numbers to you in the audit in draft form after this meeting, and certainly will be on the December.
Right, the last item is nominating. So we're putting this on because we have Mr. Coiner, who is the vice chair, is following through on his threat and finally retiring as of the end of December. And then we also have Mr. Ashton stepping down with the end of January. End of January. And the last thing you want is me to be handling all of those chores myself. So we need to, normally we would use the February meeting, I presume, to do the nominations, right? So we may want to consider moving that up to December. We normally have a nominating committee. Do you know how it's made up? Is it the executive committee?
Typically, the way it is it's tasked to the executive committee with an offer to anybody that's not in the executive committee, but raise their hand.
So, and the executive committee is the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer.
Mr. Voorhees, Mr. Simple, Mr. Weekly.
Okay. I invite anyone else who would like to join us on the nominating committee. We'll probably, if we're able to do a Zoom call, or are we going to meet in person?
We could do a virtual one, if you're able to do it.
All right, and we will probably set up a Zoom call sometime in November, so that we can prepare a list for us to consider at the December meeting. Is there anyone else who'd like to be part of that committee? All right. Thank you. All right. Regional roundtable, Mr. Pointer.
Well, I don't know if people are interested in blood sugar in public poll, but it is amazing to watch. They have some new technology of building these things. It's kind of fun to watch. But the most uplifting part of this, in a time when you can't find someone that will show up for work and work a full day when they get there, these guys and all the storms and pouring down rain all day long haven't missed 5 minutes. They're there in rain gear at 7 o'clock in the morning, and if it's pouring rain all day, they work all day. Now, I haven't seen anything like that in the last 30 years. But I guess they took my serious appeal to get it by July the 4th rather than July 26th. It's supposed to be July 26th, and I said the difference in that and July 4th next summer is night and day. It's almost like a different season. It's got to be 4th of July. And they're working all day and pouring down rain. It warms my heart, and just the thought of it, I hope warms y'all's, because people can work like they did 100 years ago still right now. They're pouring concrete, they're working.
See, for Culpeper, probably the biggest thing is, back in September, majority of the board recommended, or no, told the planning commission to advertise for a down zoning in 90% of the county. We're zoned, RA and A1 of the two zoning districts right now. RA is a minimum of 3 acres, A1 is a minimum of 5. The board instructed to double those and make RA a minimum of 6 and A1 a minimum of 10. The planning commission has scheduled a public hearing on that, at which they say they're not going to vote after the public hearing, but they scheduled the public hearing for November 20th at Eastern View High School. And so that's where we are in that process.
Already talked about broadband, we're gonna move on past that. Emergency communication tower or systems, we hope will be finalized within the next 60 days. They're doing a lot of programming of radios, handhelds and things of that right now, so that's pretty exciting. The coverage went very well. You know, sometimes a salesperson has to undersell. In this case, for coverage, we're glad because they would tell you 90, but I think we were up to mid-90s or higher in a lot of our areas. So that's good news for emergency responders. Outside of that, we will wrap up our EMS renovation project by the end of January. So we'll move from a rented space to our new space. So that's pretty exciting. And then we're already in our budget, or at least I'm already in my capital planning phase. So even though that hasn't officially kicked off, I don't think we're ever at a budget season.
Only when you're in audit season.
Only when you're not. Or not at work, right?
We tried to help a little bit with the hurricane response. Loaned out one of our portable cell towers for some of the Southwest Virginia communities that lost their cell service. I'm just kind of at a loss for words how badly the damage was in Western North Carolina in particular. But thoughts and prayers with them, and I am getting good word from colleagues and friends who live in those areas that things are progressing, so that's good. But if anybody has a special event or has, I think we had an ability to help Madison with a wildfire situation where there wasn't good cell service. So if anybody has a special event or an emergency where you need cell coverage, we can loan that out to you. We have 3 of them, and they'll connect to satellites and whatever, so we can get coverage anywhere.
Is that an ARPA purchase or something?
Yeah, exactly. Moving forward with the CIP a little earlier this year, the board has indicated support for some key projects. Community center, looks like the CTE project might actually get to a vote sometime in the next 30 days by the school board, and the preferred solution is to build on the high school campus across the parking lot and some vacant space facility there, try and extend the life of the Orange County High School campus for another 15 years. So you don't have to make a big decision otherwise. That's always one of those challenges. Do you stay or do you go? How long does any one of those facilities last? So that'll probably be our big community issue over the sort of holiday season, getting that approved. Otherwise, we continue with broadband deployment through BATI and other sources. That's what I got. Okay.
So I'm just glad that Mr. Underwood already talked about zoning and broadband, so I can talk about something else. Just real quick, the county had its annual Air Fest a couple of weeks ago. I guess it was October 12th. And well attended again this year. I think somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 people. But what I wanted to share about that event is a few years ago, the schools got involved with it. And we have a STEM event on the Wednesday and Thursday before the Air Fest. out at the airport. The hangars are filled with, different STEM learning opportunities, and every fifth grader in the county, comes out to participate in that, plus, private schools and homeschoolers are invited as well. It turns out to be a really nice thing, and then Friday night, there's an event that's private just for the pilots and people in the air show and the board members, et cetera. But on that night, dinner is served by the kids who study culinary arts at the CPEC school. So it's really become a great collaboration and great thing for the community. So we're pretty happy about that. Other than that, I would just say we're real close to nailing down the site for our 7th elementary school. Still don't have a signature on the page, but we think we have an agreed price and agreed property, so happy to get that rolling.
Only other thing, maybe if it wasn't mentioned at the last meeting, your replacement, was that already discussed or?
I don't know if we've talked about that with this group or not, but yeah, I have, my successor has been designated and contract signed. He'll start February 1st. And that's Sam McLaren, who's been our planning director for a while now and has 24 years with the county. So he's following my footsteps. I'm
Nice to
I'm
have
proud of that.
continuity.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Polk.
I'm just grateful I'm not dealing with bad broadband. Sounds like a jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah, some months ago, I think I brought up to the committee that we were moving in the direction of developing a program plan for the JM15 corridor. We had to get through the bid process that went through 2 rounds because the first round was far too expensive, which motivated the management team to rewrite the statement of work so that we could bring the costs down. We did make a selection of an engineering firm and we're under contract with them. That's estimated to take about 6 months to get through. The important thing of the development plan is it opens us up to move into construction phase. Hopefully we can get into that through the bidding and into construction 4th quarter of next year. That's about a 3/10 of a mile stretch. You're familiar with town of Remington. It's basically from north of the elementary school to the Rappahannock River. That is estimated cost for that is $10.5 million. That's varying infrastructure, pedestrian safety, and traffic calming. And then second thing, talking about taking a long time to do things. We relocated the train depot about 12 years ago. And it was done under a preservation grant, VDOT. That was a $6 million project projected. About 600,000 project. It took 200,000 just to relocate that depot. Once they got it set in place 12 years ago, we're just now getting started on phase 2 and 3. Relocation was phase 1. So we've been awarded the $400,000 to do phase 1 and 2, which is exterior, interior work. I hope it doesn't take 12 years to get there. But that's a really good thing, getting that project done. And then the last thing is the town adopted the Hometown Heroes program. Our facility maintenance department did a really great job at engineering the design for the post for hanging the banners on. It turned out really, really good. I got a lot of comments in the fall festival, which we had last Saturday, about the appearance of it and how great it looked. So we're pleased and proud to have recognition of the Hometown Heroes program. Some other stuff, but I won't bore you with it. Not far enough along to complain.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Mr. Cassidy.
Our big project is Broadview, that's a VDOT project, as everybody knows, bypass improvements. They've been working at night here for the last 6 months, getting our water betterment project done. That's done. Now the majority of the work is hanging around the intersection of 211 and Waterloo. If you've been in town lately, they are working on the infrastructure there for stormwater and sidewalks and reconfiguring the traffic lanes. So we now have some traffic lanes that are closed while they're doing the work, and the site's starting to get more active, if you'll say. When they're working at night, most people didn't see it. But now it's happening at daytime and nighttime. So people are starting to see and feel the effects of the construction project as we go into the next at least 2 years to get this project done. That's our main focus right now, is getting that done, and then some Main Street improvements. And other than that, you did touch on Heroes Bridge. If anybody has questions, let me know. It did go to the Planning Commission, but what they're looking for is a density change. They wanted more density, and the Planning Commission denied that 4-1. So it goes to council at our November 12th during a work session, and then their vote in December if it gets that far. Right now, the Planning Commission did deny their request. Again, if you got anything, let us know. Other than that, always right around the corner.
Well, I guess two major issues. One is, Frank did not touch on this, but we have been spending a lot of time last several months reviewing the status of our water and sewer treatment plants, which I think one of our employees who is in charge of the water, the sewer treatment plant, said I belonged in a museum. And we will, the challenge is going to be that because of the deferred maintenance and a lot of issues involving these systems is the funding aspect. And also the speed with which these density issues are affecting the town. We have 3 major projects that are in the process of having been approved. Some as long as 10 to 15 years ago. They're now being built, plus a 365 unit apartment complex that was approved by the council in the Warrenton Village area, and a 270 unit annexation that we are now considering. This in front of the local local government commission. We came down and reviewed it. Is going to be fronting some of this pressure on our water and sewer treatment plants. So it's speeding things up, I think, a little faster than the comprehensive plan, which called for a lot of this to happen by 2040. So we have that challenge, and that challenge is going to be met essentially by what we think is going to be a turnover in our town council. And this election, we have 5 seats that are open, representing, we are a ward system, which is unusual. And the 4 of those seats are uncontested. So it's going to be a new look on the council, and they will be dealing with these same issues that the past council has had. And it'll be interesting to see how that all evolves.
I always report on the standpipe, and today we have 3 homes without water while we change the infrastructure over. Tomorrow we'll begin filling it up. Next week we plan on being on the new standpipe. Immediately after that, we'll take the old one down. So that's moving along pretty good. We do have the funding for refurbishing the reservoir and the rest of the things around the standpipe. We're pretty happy with that. We have issued, or we're doing a contract. We're replacing all the meters in town, which will be a radio read from the top of the standpipe. So we'll be able to do it when we want to. That project, as soon as we get the contract signed, we'll begin. I figure probably be in the summer that they will replace all that. Other than that, I'd like to mention our Halloween. If y'all haven't been to it, it's really nice. It's 4 to 6 on the 31st. Bring the kids. I mean, there's 2,000 or 3,000 kids, a lot of candy. And some people give out toothbrushes, but that's what they're after. Other than that, it's our election is, we got 2 vacancy and 4 candidates running. See what happens.
We're gonna give out tax bills during that.
I guess that's a trick.
But they always dress up. We dress. They do good. They do.
Mr. Curry?
We're continuing down the path of designing new courthouse. I think we're on a good path there with Bobby and Holmes. Other than that, we have a much smaller, Scaryville, event on Main Street to be closed down. Kiddos from the rural areas come and do their thing. I think the town of Washington's done something with that as well, which is nice. And then the fall art tour, first weekend in November, which is really kind of neat. Artisans across the county open their homes, which are private studios, and it's as much a home tour as it is an art tour. So it's kind of cool.
Brings in a lot of people to the county. I'm going next, I reckon. One thing I'm very proud about, we have some really philanthropic citizens in our county, and we have determined through the Public Safety Committee that it would be a good idea to distribute AEDs throughout the county in areas where it's heavily populated, heavily for Rappahannock County. Not grocery stores, but like Settles gas station, the Quickie Mart, churches, just all over the community, so that we can actually have AEDs on location. Haven't, I don't think, determined how dispatch will be able to, or if dispatch will be able to unlock the box for the person calling to use the AED. So they can call dispatch, say someone's down, they could give them a code, open the AED box and actually walk them through it. But also in line with that, we'll be getting some AED and CPR programs to educate the community, so that if they have a friend or neighbor that goes down, they can actually act and not just call them. So
I think we're funding for around 40 of these things.
So
That's great.
It's a big commitment, yeah.
All right, I think it was several meetings back, I don't know how long ago, I mentioned that we had received a TAP grant for the Blue Ridge Avenue sidewalk project. Probably would have taken us 3 or 4 years to do that, and we decided to turn that grant back in because we thought we could do it cheaper. And I can report probably mid-November, we'll have that project completed and have saved a bunch of money.
Without
So,
Davis bacon wage rates and all the other stuff.
forget that engineering and all of those things, we just built it. So,
And the inflation factor.
yeah,
Yes.
all of that stuff, so always an option to keep that in mind if it does work. We also got past our last big hurdle with Norfolk Southern on our pedestrian bridge project. We had to coordinate with them to place concrete on the bridge deck. That was done last Thursday, so now we're back into more of a normal construction project with just, putting up brick and things like that. So that project should come along pretty quickly now. Our fall paving schedule will start, weather permitting, November 4th, probably go on through Thanksgiving or so to get all of that done. So we have quite a bit of paving in town. We do have a smart scale project. Well, I don't know if it's smart scale. Anyhow, we have a project for the roundabout at McDivitt and Route
Smart
3. I think that's one, yeah. And that project is scheduled to be advertised this fall for that, and some utility relocation is going on right now. Some gas lines is being relocated for that, so we're glad to see that project move forward, and that's 100% grant money, so it doesn't really matter what it costs.
That's smart scale.
Yeah, yeah, so data center, we're working on the reuse project that continues to move forward. We still have some work with the county we need to do with that, but from the developer standpoint and the one that's cutting the checks, he's moving forward with that. And then we're almost substantially complete on our wastewater plant upgrade. So a lot of projects going on in town, but so far everything's going pretty good with that. So
Thank you. Move to adjourn.
One last part. So we have had a ongoing process of trying to get this trail, because we did a process of trying to get a sidewalk along the major thoroughfare into town, and what we had estimated to be about $500,000, according to VDOT, it ended up being about an $8 to $10 million project. So we had also been looking at doing a trail, and I'm pleased to say that we've finally gotten the last approval that we needed to get. And so we have already gotten the funding for it from private sources. So we are going to be going ahead and doing that over the course of the winter, which will connect Rush River, which is our new development, and the new post office with the rest of the town. So it'll make a nice walking path that will allow a nice about 1.5 miles walking path for people who come to the town. The town in the Rappahannock County, as you know, or may not know, had a boundary line adjustment, and by having that property come into the town, it has a stream that goes through it, and the owner of the property, an individual, is spending a huge amount of money to put a national, it will become a model nationally for creating walkways, vernal pools, bringing something back to nature with indigenous plants, removing invasive plants, literally going foot by foot and removing all the invasive plants and replacing them with indigenous plants. It's going to be an extraordinary thing. There will be several bridges going across the water areas. They're going to be doing a presentation at our November 11 town council meeting. So I know our neighbors, I don't know if you'd be interested, but
I've met with the developer and the individual backing it.
yeah, it's pretty,
Stream restoration,
it's pretty extraordinary.
fun stuff.
And then finally, in addition to having all the little nippers coming through on October 31st for Halloween, we also have Christmas in Little Washington. And we have a large number of people come in for that. We have vendors, we have a parade, and that'll be on the 12th of December. So we invite you to come to that. That's always a fun event. I think it begins at 1 o'clock. And now I think we have a
Can I say-
motion.
can I say
Yes.
one thing?
Yes.
Sorry, and I hate to end on a sad note. Many of you that have been here for a long time, probably remember our previous, Office Administrator, Sue Bromiak. She worked here from 2001 until 2017. Retired in 2016 and actually came back part-time as a favor to me in my first year as being a director, just because she knew so much about the commission. Sue sadly passed away on Monday, and I didn't want to mark it. Just let me know. So,
She was always heavily involved with the living towns.
yeah.
She really helped us all.
Sue gave so much of her time, and frankly, her husband Andy gave a lot of his time to a lot of things the commission did over the years, and that goes internally to the building, externally, and to events and things like that. So Terry and I and Michelle certainly worked with her. We've had staff that don't know her, but did want to mention that. So thank you.
And I appreciate that you brought that up and so that we could share a couple of memories. So thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? I'm holding you to that motion, by the way.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
There's no sign.